Have you ever felt the weight of people's gaze on you, their brains rushing to answer the mystery of your existence? They keep an eye on your every action, believing that you are following a concealed plan or design. They mutter that you're calculated, plotting, and constantly 2 steps ahead because your timing and actions are too flawless to be a coincidence. If this seems familiar, brace yourselves. The reality is considerably more powerful and unpleasant than anyone could have imagined. You're not following a script. You're moving in sync with a heavenly rhythm they can't detect. What people mistake for calculation is your link to a higher intellect, an intuitive flow that will be further detailed shortly. Stay with this message because what comes next will not only verify every unexplained nudge you've ever felt, but will also provide you the key to comprehending your undeniable power. Hello, chosen ones. You must realize that not every step is properly planned on paper. Some of the most profound and powerful actions are inscribed in the spirit and engraved into the fabric of destiny before they materialize in the physical world. That is the root of the tension, the underlying fixation that others experience while watching you. They can't rationally understand it, but they're fascinated by it. Every move you take, every choice you make seems too sharp, too punctual, and too accurate to be a mere coincidence. So they turn to the only explanation available within their narrow framework. They mutter between themselves. They're calculated. They're plotting. They must be planning every single detail in the shadows. But here's the reality, which will shatter their notions and confirm your innermost knowing. You're not calculating, you're flowing. What they term a brilliant approach is really your deep spiritual sensibility. What people see as complex strategizing is really you following a subtle inner push, a heavenly voice that never fails you. And here's a startling scientific fact. Cognitive science says your intuition processes information up to 200,000 times quicker than your conscious, thinking mind. This implies that while someone else is still immobilized by analysis, methodically compiling a pros and cons list, your spirit has already gotten the answer, plotted the path, and given you the go-ahead. It's no surprise that your moves seem to be heavenly choreography to people who are lost in their own bewilderment. You're marching to a beat they can't hear, led by a light they can't see. The genuinely amusing aspect is their certainty. They have persuaded themselves that you are staying up late with intricate spreadsheets and color-coded battle plans, like a corporate villain from a movie, painstakingly preparing your climb. When in actuality, you are merely drinking water, minding your own holy business, and receiving heavenly messages that others do not even think exist. They can't take the fact that your ideas are the result of perception rather than forethought. And when they attempt to study you, they find they can't foresee your next action. Why? Because you don't always realize it until the heavenly voice reaches your soul. So, tonight, let's pull back the curtain fully. Let's speak about why people can't stop saying your name, why they believe you're constantly 2 steps ahead, and why they can't understand that your power isn't calculated. It's unadulterated, God-given insight. 1. They call it calculation because they are unable to name discernment. This is the true source of the issue. People can only understand the world in terms of the conceptions that fit into the restricted boxes they have been given. For them, every sharp move, every timely choice, and every elegant movement must have been meticulously planned, practiced, and prepared. They just do not have the terminology or spiritual vocabulary for what you are doing, so they use the only word they know, calculated. But what they are really experiencing is discernment in action. You are not playing chess against them. Rather, you are reacting to a world of information that most people are unaware of. Discernment is not about overthinking, but about perceiving. It is about seeing the subtle truth in what is not expressed. It's about identifying the discordant energy underlying attractive words and knowing for certain when a seemingly open door is really a well-disguised trap. Those who depend entirely on reasoning and empirical facts lack this spiritual filter. They need masses of proof, recurring patterns, and predictable results before they feel comfortable enough to proceed. You do not. You don't need 10 red flags to get you to take action. One small internal check, one faint whisper, is sufficient since you have learned to prioritize what your soul tells you above everything else. To them, this seems inherently unjust. It seems that you have insider information, as if someone gave you the test answers before the exam even started. In actuality, you are just tuning into a frequency that they have never learned to hear. This is why you look so calculated. You have an incredible ability to walk away from situations before they devolve into mayhem. You automatically shun individuals just before they reveal their harmful essence. You gently seize possibilities when the moment reaches a flawless, exquisite crescendo. They believe it's a wonderful plan. They image you sitting someplace, planning 10 steps ahead on a vast chessboard. However, you live by sensibility rather than strategy. You move when you sense a spiritual draw. You come to a halt when you sense the heavenly check. And you trust everything without second-guessing. That is discernment. It does not come from textbooks or seminars. It is straight from the spirit. What actually stings for those observing you is that they have spent years, if not decades, studying the subtle rules of the game, politics, manipulation, and social climbing. Despite this, you continue to win without really playing. You do not need to manipulate, overanalyze, or jeopardize your credibility. You just react to what you know deep down in your core, and that will keep you light years ahead. They despise it because they cannot box it, forecast it, or even imitate it. Call it intuition, divine alignment, or whatever you wish. But this is not a calculation. It is discernment, which is a power that no one can ever imitate. 2. For the spiritually blind, intuition seems to be a strategy. This is why people mislabel you so often and confidently. When someone can't see the unseen, inner compass that guides your every action, they can only believe you've mastered some difficult, external approach. They see how effortlessly you go through life, and it doesn't make sense to them because they believe that every successful conclusion must be the result of hours of arduous planning, researching, and anticipating. But your intuition does not operate that way. It doesn't need a spreadsheet, a PowerPoint presentation, or a detailed 5-year strategy. It provides heavenly guidance quickly, with a diamond-like clarity that seems almost supernatural to individuals who live in a state of continual uncertainty. What surprises people is the amazing uniformity of your motions. You seldom stumble, although others often do. You seldom come too soon or too late. You arrive exactly where you should be at the right time. From the outside, this seems to be the faultless execution of a master strategist. However, you are not calculating steps like a military strategist. Rather, you are tuned into something deeper, quicker, and divine. Intuition entirely eliminates the uncertainty and doubt inherent in rationality. It does not seek for permission. It does not seek committee approval. It simply knows. When you act on that knowledge, you look exact, crisp, and intentional, even if you weren't deliberately attempting to be. Others' spiritual blindness generates the idea that you are plotting because they cannot see the number of indications you see. They believe you are anticipating the future, but they fail to see that you are just reacting to the current moment with a heightened awareness that they lack. What they see as extraordinary foresight is merely your capacity to notice the little details, the concealed tones in a person's voice, the subtle changes in energy in a room, the unsaid truths that linger in the air. And since they missed everything, they presume you manipulated your knowledge out of thin air. This fundamental mistake operates in 2 ways. On the one hand, it breeds mistrust and distrust when others believe you are deceptive, too slick, or too smart to be real. On the other side, it instills a profound feeling of wonder in them, as they admire your remarkable ability to move in ways they can't understand. In any case, your intuition shatters their rational, predictable universe into a million pieces, leaving them extremely uneasy. They're oblivious to the flow, so they call it strategy. They are deaf to the indications and call it luck. But what it truly means is alignment. You do not need to plan every step since your soul is already in sync with the cosmos. And when you move like that, you will always seem to be a master strategist to people who do not understand the heavenly rhythm you are following. This road of living by intuition is holy, and it should not be undertaken alone. If these words resonate with the deepest portions of your spirit, it means you've discovered your tribe. We encourage you to formally join our community at God Connection by subscribing to the channel. This is more than simply a subscription. It is a proclamation that you are prepared to accept your heavenly gifts. And if you feel compelled to help disseminate light and truth, consider it an energy exchange. A $10 gift using the Super Thanks button below this video allows us to continue creating material that strengthens and awakens souls like yours. Your help, in any form, drives our work and is much appreciated. 3. You aren't playing games, you are following codes. This is why your life seems so drastically different to others who observe you. In their view, everything is a transaction or a competition. Life revolves on winning or losing, planning or outwitting, manipulating or being manipulated. They see life as a never-ending war in which survival is determined by one's intelligence, cunning, or ruthlessness. But you do not move in that place. You do not operate on that frequency at all. You're not attempting to mislead people, win points, or show that you're smarter than the next person. You are merely adhering to a set of holy norms that were incorporated into the very architecture of your soul long before you realized what they meant. These codes are not rules that you were given in a book. They are unwavering beliefs, strong instincts, and everlasting truths that affect your movements without your conscious participation. They represent your spiritual DNA. This is why you confuse folks so much. They will swear on their life that you are conspiring or concealing some hidden objective, while in fact you are just following the inner structure, the divine design, that tells you what is correct, when to move, and when to remain still. Obedience to these internal standards results in a deep constancy that the outer world perceives as mastery. While others are switching between games and changing strategy, you stay consistent because you are not improvising your way through life. You are connected to a divine system that will not and cannot fail. People are especially concerned since they cannot access your codes. They may observe, analyze, and even duplicate your motions, but the source of your movement is purely within. They cannot replicate your obedience because it is a way of life rather than a performance. And when obedience is genuine, it generates spiritual power that no game, no matter how well played, can ever match. This is why you fully disrupt those who thrive on turmoil. Their techniques do not work on you. Their manipulations and guilt trips roll right off you since you're not playing the same game in the first place. You are not reacting to their motions. Rather, you are responding to your protocols. That annoys them to know, and since it implies you can't be baited, distracted, or dragged out of your role. They are occupied with attempting to win a brief game. You are preoccupied with remaining in harmony with eternity. The fact is that alignment always triumphs in the long term. So when people label you calculating or devious, they are really revealing their own ignorance. They are too preoccupied with their worldly pursuits to recognize spiritual obedience when they see it. What they call strategy is merely staying true to your inner blueprint. And it will always seem like mastery to those who are lost in their own disarray. 4. They mistake your flow for a formula. People find it difficult to accept that you move with such elegance and accuracy in the absence of obvious instructions. So they tell themselves that you must have one stashed somewhere. They see how you appear at precisely the correct time, how you easily sidestep the traps that others fall into, and how you answer with unshakable clarity when other people pause in doubt. To them, this needs to imply that you've figured out some secret technique or formula that keeps you ahead of the competition. However, there is no formula. What they perceive is flow. What they're seeing is alignment. And it is something they will never be able to categorize into a simple set of stages or approaches. This is why they continuously replay your actions in their heads, study your decisions, and chat about your conduct as if it were a hard problem to solve. They badly want to forecast your next move and pattern, but they can't, because your flow is spiritual, not logical. And the spirit does not follow strict, predictable paths. It moves in rhythms, which might be subtle or sudden, but are always perfect. This is why you can't be pinned down. One day you move left, the following day you move right, and both are proper moves. There is no formula for this. People who rely on reasoning for security are unable to tolerate this. They want life to be predictable, to to work like a mathematical equation with input and output, cause and effect. And when people look at you, it seems unjust since your life does not fit into that tight system. They watch you get outcomes without formulae, make progress without checklists, and show flawless timing without any obvious computations. To them, that is threatening. Because if your flow is genuine, it indicates their valuable formulae may not be as strong or dependable as they imagined. Your flow is unbreakable because it is living. A formula may shatter under pressure, but flow adapts. A formula requires ideal, controlled circumstances to function, while flow bends with the wind and yet gets to its target. That is why others cannot decipher you. They seek consistency in numbers and patterns, but you live a life of consistency in alignment. So when people label you calculating or claim you are too exact to be genuine, they are only displaying their own ignorance. They fail to see that what they term a formula is merely your surrender to a stream more greater and more knowledgeable than yourself. And that stream will always carry you further than their arguments ever could. 5. Intuition does not hesitate, it delivers. This is why others viewing you see your movements as exceedingly acute and deliberate. The majority of them are trapped in a never-ending loop of self-doubt. They overthink, question themselves, and need 5 separate confirmations before making a single tiny step. By the time they've persuaded themselves it's safe to act, the heavenly chance has passed them by. You don't live like that. When you feel anything, you move. You don't let fear or uncertainty distort the first, clear voice from your soul. And this is what sets you apart from the great majority of others. From the outside, it seems like you have everything planned out well in advance. They see your calm assurance, the laser perfection of your timing, and think you've mentally practiced the maneuver 100 times. But the reality is, you did not rehearse anything. You just trusted the first nudge. That supernatural voice does not need a dispute. It does not need external validation and does not need to be explained to anybody. It only requires your obedience. And when you do it without hesitation, it comes off as calculated genius. This is why people don't comprehend how you always do things perfect. They cannot see the unseen decision you make every time you refuse to pause. Whereas others allow doubt to persuade them out of their alignment, you allow intuition to guide you right into it. And the disparity in the findings is clear. Their steps sway with doubt. Yours lands solidly and purposefully. Their movements seem cautious and too deliberate. Yours seem bold and precise. What they call strategy is just refusing to allow fear to seize the wheel. Hesitation is the enemy of intuition, and you have already learned this valuable lesson. You understand that the more you hesitate to overthink, the weaker the first, pure whisper becomes. Most people ignore it by postponing, but you act on it when it is still fresh and intense. That explains why you always appear on time. You are not forecasting the future. Instead, you are reacting to the present moment with entire confidence. So when people accuse you of being pre-planned, manipulative, or too calculated, it is because they are unable to comprehend a life free of hesitancy. They don't comprehend you don't have a master plan in your pocket. You are only respecting the original whisper, which they continue to ignore. And that basic, forceful obedience is what makes you seem untouchable. 6. They are offended because you don't stumble. Most individuals see life as a sequence of trials and mistakes. You make a mistake, recover, try again, and hope for a better outcome the following time. That is the rhythm they're used to. And since that's all they know, they believe it's the only path ahead for everyone. But when people look at you, they see someone who does not fall into every apparent trap, who does not have to touch the fire to know it is on, and who does not need 10 painful failures to identify a dead end. You move differently. On a subliminal level, this disparity offends them. They misinterpret your heavenly navigation as arrogance. You must believe you are superior to them because you do not face the same challenges as they do. They want to think that you are calculating every move, rehearsing every step, and scheming every choice like a strategy, because if you are not calculating, it must indicate something much more unpleasant for them, that you are just tuning in. And if you're paying attention, maybe all of their errors and failures were not as unavoidable as they assumed. Perhaps they were just not listening. That is a fact too big for most egos to bear. Instead, they focus their fury onto you. They fail to see that avoiding unneeded stumbling is about perception rather than pride. You don't have to crash into every single wall to find where the doors are, since you believe in supernatural messages that most people disregard. You've learned to notice the subtle warnings, the silent nudges, and the unpleasant feeling in your stomach that says, "Do not go that way." This doesn't make you flawless, it makes you more aware. Others stumble frequently not because tripping is their fate, but because they are oblivious to these important indications. The insult stems from the fact that your route makes theirs seem more difficult than it needed to be. Watching you stroll easily over the identical barriers they fell over makes them feel vulnerable, as if their problems were caused not just by life's unfairness, but also by their own failure to discriminate. Instead of humbling themselves to learn, they become bitter. They'd rather accuse you of being devious, excessively calculated, or just fortunate than confess you've learned to navigate where they're still lost. The fact is that stumbling is not always required for development. Wisdom involves learning without causing extra injuries. Divine navigation will always seem strange to people who cannot distinguish between alignment and chance. What bothers them is not that you don't stumble, it's that you remind them that they didn't have to either. 7. Your silence is a frequency and not a strategy. People believe that if you wait, don't answer straight away, or withdraw your energy, you must be planning something. They believe you are being tactical, as if you are sitting in the background planning your next terrible move. What they do not and cannot grasp is that quiet for you does not imply withholding or playing games. It is all about tuned in. Your quietness is a kind of listening, not only to others, but also to the energy, environment, and heavenly impulses that direct your every move. This is why your silence confuses and often annoys others. They are used to silence when utilized as a weapon, manipulative tool, or passive-aggressive method of acquiring control. They project that paradigm onto you, assuming you're playing the same game. But your silence isn't about them at all. It's all about remaining perfectly aligned. While others rush to fill the air with anxious noise and meaningless words, you wait for the perfect confirmation, the spiritual green light, before speaking or moving. Patience is a superpower because it prevents you from behaving impulsively. And when you eventually speak or act, it has the weight and power of a supernatural command. People are concerned about how exact their time gets as a result of this exercise. They can't understand why your words strike deeper, your choices look sharper, or you escape calamities they didn't see coming. They don't comprehend your quiet is a tuning fork. You're not responding, you're adjusting. You're letting go of all the extraneous noise and static so that when you act, it's motivated by something far stronger and purer than instinct or emotion. That is why quiet in your hands represents clarity rather than empty. It's not avoidance, but precision. You are silent not because you don't know what to say, but because you understand that not everything and everyone merits a response. You are not motionless because you are frightened to move. You are still because you understand that movement without alignment wastes energy. People who don't grasp this will constantly accuse you of conspiring, while in fact you're just listening at a level they've never reached. And this is what makes your quiet so effective. It is not a tactic you learned from a book. It is a frequency you adhere to. You've learned that the appropriate pause offers a holy place for the truth to emerge. And once it occurs, your reaction exudes supernatural power that no amount of human preparation could ever create. As we end our trip into the center of your intuitive power, keep in mind that you are a part of a bigger movement. This is a worldwide awakening. We encourage you to establish your position in our community of light. Subscribe to God Connection to ensure you never miss out on insights that will keep you aligned and ahead of the curve. Click the like button to send a wave of truth around the globe. Leave a comment with your own intuition experiences, and please share this video with everyone who needs to grasp the actual nature of their own power. Your participation is more than simply support for a channel. It is a proclamation that you are entering a realm of clarity and power that most people will never experience. God bless you.